I'm tired, I've got problems with dopamine.
My whole life is on my phone.
I don't want a wife, I have dopamine issues.
When it's 23 hours a day until you get bloody blisters, until your frenulum tears.
I'm bored.
Without the phone, you face the problem instead of avoiding it, which is childish. Yes.
You're just a lazy ass.
Like a rat with an electrode in its pleasure center, who will give you back your time or your life?
Discomfort takes away our ability to be a real man.
Change your routine. What is your life about? You, our dear civil servant.
I serve the people based.
Tell me, there's sports, sex, sleep, the 3 S's.
Hi everyone, today my guest is Vasily Shurov. This is our second meeting. I invited him to talk about dopamine, about addictions. When we hear the word addiction, it's usually about substances, but in this case, it's about addiction to tablets, gadgets, coffee, anything at all. Dopamine. I looked at the frequency of searches, and probably neural networks are ahead in terms of search frequency, but now dopamine is really viral. Everyone explains everything with it. I'm tired, I have a problem with dopamine, I don't want my wife, I have a problem with dopamine, I can't work at my job, I have a problem with dopamine. Don't you get the feeling that dopamine is like some kind of pop star now? It's being plugged in everywhere possible.
Yeah, it's a certain brand that sells really well, gives you an alibi. Really, in an age of abundance, when any need is satisfied instantly, naturally, frustration tolerance is zero, and as soon as something doesn't work out, there's immediate boredom and suffering. We're not ready for long, purposeful efforts. Give us everything quickly and that's it.
That's it. They sell all sorts of courses, to boost dopamine, to improve dopamine. Soon there will be some kind of dopamine in a jar. They'll be selling it. Let's set the record straight right away. In the classic sense, for the guys who are watching us and for the girls too. Dopamine is about pleasure, but actually it's not just about pleasure, it's probably more about anticipation. So what is dopamine really about in this context?
What's it called? Anticipation. And can you...
Just put it in simple words so that everyone can understand.
Why does everyone love reels? Because the novelty effect drives our attraction to new things, for some unexpected sensations, for the anticipation of something. So basically it slowly moves us toward our goal.
You say, like dopamine here and there, really, like likes. Yes, we want people to like our posts.
Yes, of course, recognition.
I even want to have more likes on my posts, helping people like coffee addiction, scrolling through the news in the morning, but that's just part of everyday life. So when we discuss this, people ask if they should just move to the woods. Isn't it possible that we're kind of overreacting and demonizing all of this? Maybe this is already sort of the new normal?
This really is the new normal now. But if you feel that the usual things that used to bring you joy, anticipation, now bring boredom, it means your receptors have dulled a bit. Try some self-restraint. Don't sit on your phone, read a book instead, don't drink coffee by the bucket, cut back a little, take a break, have some good tea. It actually recovers pretty quickly and it's really easy to demonize dopamine, but you're constantly overstimulating your receptors. The search for new experiences, sensations, tastes, and other things, our body isn't adapted for that. It used to take a long time to get food. Our ancestors had to walk for a long time, grow something, and even not so long ago, you had to buy and cook food. You didn't just get it instantly, like with a snap of your fingers.
But now I come home after a hard day at work and I can just order food through an app or open the fridge and grab something right away and eat it. There's a ton of TV shows to watch now. Back in the day, I'm not sure.
You'd wait all week for your favorite movie, circle it in the newspaper.
Saturday mornings you'd get up and watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but now you just turn it on and let it play in the background without really watching because it's not interesting. I caught myself thinking that we've stopped really watching movies. I think the guys will recognize themselves in this. You turn on a movie and at the same time you're on your phone, scrolling, watching. And on one hand, it's hard for you to follow the plot. And on the other hand, it seems to you that the movie isn't interesting or engaging. And movies used to be different. We used to watch them differently. And now my friends and I have made a rule, though not everyone always follows it. But I grumble and say, give me your phones. Come on, we live in different buildings, close to each other, and we get together in the evenings. I have an apartment that's quite spacious. I have a large living room. I say, let's put away our phones, and as soon as we started putting away our phones and watching movies, the movies felt completely different. There was a movie with Brad Pitt that came out, Formula One. When we watched it for the first time and put everything away, the story felt different and interesting. You wanted to keep watching. But is this just normal life, or should we still reflect on ourselves and catch ourselves doing it?
But you just described classic digital hygiene. When you're eating, don't be on your phone, and things will feel different for you too. I have.
If you still
And you cooked it, went out, picked, and prepared the dish you wanted yourself. With that anticipation, it will seem like divine ambrosia to you.
In short, you need to start cooking.
Slow life, a slow-paced life, walks, cooking now and then. Really, to watch a movie, to get into it, to understand what the author was thinking, the storylines, to try to see something familiar. There aren't that many plots, but the way they twisted and rearranged them is awesome. It trains your brain and you don't get distracted.
Maybe this is the new normal and the brain can actually function in it.
Well, it really is the new normal. We can't stop technological progress, but we can regulate it, especially when it comes to children, knowing that their brains have maximum neuroplasticity. Whatever you put in there, that's what they'll live with, if a phone raises them. And there will be this false ADHD when you constantly need some kind of stimulation and a person can't focus on anything seriously. Well, what kind of studying can there be if the child is all jittery, bored, nothing interests him, nothing can compare to visual stimulation?
But we ourselves are on our phones, so how can you explain to a child not to be on their phone if you're always on your phone yourself?
Exactly, a personal example matters, as you mentioned with the movie theater. The same goes for meals. The same goes for discussing what happened at school or kindergarten. What's new? What would you like to learn? Let's try this club. Let's go together. But how do you get them involved in real life? The phone will consume them completely.
When I bought an apartment 5 years ago, the Armenian consul lived in that apartment. And I said, "Where's the TV? The living room is big. Now it's hanging there." He said, "We don't watch TV here. When we eat, when we have dinner, we talk and communicate." Back then I thought it was kind of strange, but now I understand that actually what really matters is gathering around the table. All together, dad, mom, kids, grandma, they eat and they're not all on their phones. You know, my brother with you something?
You see, those kinds of relatives are people who get together to eat when the number of people changes or for some holidays. How else would you know? That's social communication, the most valuable thing. You share food. It used to be a symbol of trust that you shared food with someone, that they wouldn't poison you or do anything bad. Everyone gathered around the campfire after leaving the cave. It's a powerful unifying moment that children remember for life. And these grandmothers, you know, why are there so many Italian centenarians? Because they are shown respect. They're seated at the head of the table. Everyone comes up and greets them. They give the best piece to that 90-year-old grandfather. And there in Sardinia, people live to almost 100 because their social importance is valued. They pass on traditions. They support the family. They are like little judges at the table who can settle any dispute.
I'm bored without my phone. That's the phrase I hear very often from my friends when I ask, "Why are you always on your phone?" He's bored, he can't take it anymore, so for him, as we've decided, it's a new normal, and this new normal has consequences for how the brain functions. So, about ADHD, correct me if I'm wrong, there's been a huge increase, well, in what you could call pseudo-ADHD.
Pseudo-ADHD, that's up to 12 years old. We all know these kids, the ones who always have poor grades, the real troublemakers, and often they end up having very successful careers. If they channel that ADHD in the right direction, you won't be able to catch up with them. But that's from childhood, and now it's digital ADHD. Really, you're on these short bursts. Moreover, there's this FOMO, fear of missing out, like I missed something important. I haven't checked my phone for an hour. Maybe something major happened. There's also that fear.
Can you describe this pseudo-ADHD so that people watching this video now can understand that it's about them, right? We need to work through this. How does it show up?
Just take a look at your screen time, how much time you spend on it every day. You jump between social networks, watching reels. Just remember the one that caught your attention. Most likely your mind will be completely blank. And of course, there's withdrawal symptoms. If you don't have your phone, you get nervous, you get irritable. There was even a study about this. If it's lying nearby, I'm constantly well, I'm less anxious, but if it's, God forbid, in my bag, I'm completely beside myself. I can't focus on work. I'm worried about what's happening with my phone. My whole life is in my phone. Money, interests, social networks, even admiration. With all those likes, how do you present yourself there? If a video doesn't work out, it's like some kind of extreme suffering if there aren't enough likes. Even in real life, really, a person goes on a date or something. He's boring. He's sitting on his phone. Nothing interests him. He's sitting in a restaurant on his phone. He's not interested. Even during an interesting movie, he's on his phone. His phone is what comforts him.
Let's take the phone away, just as an example, without the phone.
Here's a rat with an electrode in its pleasure center.
That means it becomes apathetic, constantly forgetting things.
It can be apathetic or, on the contrary, nervous and irritable. It tries to end communication quickly and return to what gives it pleasure.
Listen, it's the same with computer games.
It's really the same with computer games because we see a loss of control over how much a person can really play all night until their eyes hurt and they're paralyzed. With energy drinks, yes, with energy drinks and with all sorts of electronic smoking systems, it's the same thing.
In the same category, of course, IQOS devices.
All of that, 100%. It's all brain stimulation. As his mom described it, I walk into the room and the wallpaper has peeled off the walls from all that vaping. It's like the guy practically turned the place into a steam room. He had an important battle there. He was storming Berlin or doing something else. He couldn't even leave to use the bathroom. And there's intense aggression if anyone tries to stop them. If his mom comes in at 2 in the morning and says, "Please stop yelling and swearing, you're not letting us sleep," he might actually throw something or do something else. A person gets so absorbed, for them it's more important than real life. That's what's scary.
Hey friends, I want to remind you that I have Escapism vitamins, which I created with love. First and foremost for my family, for my friends, and now for my child as well. Because very soon, maybe even by the time this video is out, there will be a kids line, and I'm also planning to make sports nutrition. I try to choose the best raw materials, use the best production technologies, and at my own factory, which is located in a special economic zone in Dubna, I make vitamins for you that I'm proud of and that I stand behind with my reputation. That's why my last name and signature are on every bottle. Friends, thank you for your trust. Thank you for the tens of thousands of positive reviews, for the ratings you give our vitamins, and for believing and trusting in us. The most important thing, the greatest value in my life is your health. Be happy. The link to the vitamins is below this video. We have started to perceive boredom as something that shouldn't exist. I noticed that. We don't digest it well, and we absolutely have to keep ourselves busy with something, either with our phone or just surfing the internet, doom scrolling, reading some news, constantly consuming content instead of just being bored. Is this normal for the brain, and is it beneficial?
This is absolutely normal because at this moment another system in the brain is activated which processes information. If you're learning something, you need to stop, go over it in your head, repeat it several times, figure out what you haven't understood, and then repeat it again. That's the only way it works. That's why boredom is simply the oversaturation of receptors, and when they're no longer being stimulated, it feels like boredom. That's what boredom really is. It's spring now, the weather is beautiful. Go for a walk, read a book, watch your favorite show, do some exercises, work out. You'll get so much dopamine from movement it'll be coming out of your ears, because that's the strongest stimulation, the nigrostriatal system, which is responsible for motor activity. You can get as much of it as you want for yourself.
But how can I tell if I really have a problem? Not just that I like my phone, or for example, that I work a lot on social media in the evenings. How can I tell that this has already become a problem?
Well, you work, you understand that you're working, and it brings you income.
We hide behind that.
If you're pretending this is a job, or you've been job searching for years without success or something else, be honest with yourself. Ask, what is my life really like? Signs? It's extreme unproductivity, a lot of time wasted, and when you review your day, you can't even tell yourself what you spent it on. You can't say, I spent this productive time well. You didn't become smarter, you didn't become stronger, you didn't make any new social or interesting connections. You can clearly tell by your own criteria that you wasted another day, and you don't even know how.
On what, like before? Yeah, as always, the grass was greener back then. People used to honestly say he's lazy, or they'd say I'm lazy, or for example, I'm physically tired, or I'm not interested in this, or I'm not capable of it. Well, to honestly admit.
You can now admit that I want to be lazy, I'm not interested in this, I'm not capable of it, I'm talking about something else. What has changed? Well,
it seems like nothing, but much more often now dopamine is used as an excuse. So in your practice, let's say a man comes to you, for example, Our viewer comes to you, makes an appointment, and says, Vasily, I don't feel like doing anything at all. Work doesn't bring me any pleasure. This, that, and that. I probably have a problem with dopamine. But when you look at him, you think, yeah, you're just a lazy ass. How do you tell if you're dealing with a lazy ass and not someone with the kind of problem we're discussing?
Well, we have to rule out depression, burnout, burning out, especially related to multitasking. Sometimes a person just hasn't rested for a long time and is overloaded. The same goes for workaholism. Very often, people who work for themselves try to replace all the specialists and do it quite seriously. In the end, they burn out, they develop asthenia, and also anger towards others and towards what they do. If pathology is ruled out and I find out that the person simply hasn't rested in a long time, or they have some kind of conflict or tense situation in the family or something else, still I want to find the reason. As for dopamine, dopamine is the last thing I'll consider. If it's not a Parkinson's patient with tremor or not a delusional patient with elevated dopamine, I don't focus on dopamine at all. It's a brand, it's marketing, it's what biohackers, coaches, and other wonderful people who have nothing to do with you are pushing. As doctors, we understand that dopamine is a hype topic, but it's the last thing you should be thinking about.
I agree with you, but I'd like to talk about social media and compare it to cats. I remember my childhood, and I remember my mom telling me, don't sit too close to the TV, you'll go blind, and if you watch too much TV, you'll get dumb. I can tell you the same thing about many other things I was told about. Starting from that and ending with protein, it's said to cause many things.
Everything imaginable will fall off because of protein. Why is that?
Well,
They gave me breakouts with acid regimens.
didn't you? Well, back then they used to say that tub was pig feed.
I remember.
What's the question? Aren't we doing the same thing now that our parents did when they told us about TV, saying, we grew up without TV, but you all have become dumb because of it? You just sit there zombified with red eyes, you'll go blind. Aren't we doing the same thing now?
How are we doing the same thing?
TV became the new normal. Yes, really, people used to read more, go outside more, and then TV appeared and kids started staying home more often. And at some point during the transition, yes, people said it was terrible, it was bad, it shouldn't be like that, but eventually it became part of the norm. That it's normal to be lazy, unfocused, to move less. I'm talking about how the norm will change.
People can make a deal with themselves and honestly admit what their life is about. If you get stuck in front of the TV or on social media, time will pass pretty quickly, and in the end, it's actually a very limited period of time. If you want, go ahead and sit there, no problem. The economy, attention, all that social engineering, Big Brother, it's all designed that way. It will constantly feed you very interesting content, just throwing it at you non-stop. But who will give you back your time? Who will give you back your life, your active mind, your prospects, your opportunities? Well, go ahead and sit there, like Pelevin described. Everyone lying down, their brains in a jar, electrodes connected, an image being broadcast to them. Yeah, just the ideal life.
There's a service where someone teaches you how to make reels. If you look at my reels, usually 95% of them are just our conversation today. So I don't have to shoot anything separately. They say, just cut it up. There's someone to handle the reels, so just film 10 today. I ask, what's the difference? And they explain that reels contain exactly the quintessence of evil that makes you addicted to them. And people who make reels understand how to make a reel, what parts it should consist of to hook you as much as possible. And so I read in a reel, first there must be novelty, that's one, and I want your comment. Unpredictability, zero effort, and instant reward, respectively. I have a question, a joke.
But only video.
Comment on why these short videos are so addictive. And I can even say from my own channel that the shorter the episode, the easier it is to promote. Thank you.
That's exactly the novelty, the learning. That's what dopamine is responsible for in the cortex. This is related to both safety and survival, because any new information needs to be analyzed, whether it's dangerous or useful. The brain is wired for this. It gives you the strongest response. When there's an unexpected ending, humor also raises dopamine. What is a joke? It's an unexpected ending in some routine situation. And at the very least, your worldview changes and you just laugh. It's great, so that's normal. Yes, they keep you hooked on this dopamine.
They told me that at the beginning of the video there must be a hook. So you can't just start telling something useful. You have to, in the first 5 seconds, really, yes,
Grab their attention.
so that they want to watch till the end. Never do the whole this, that, and the other thing. It turns out it's important for something to be happening in the frame so that you get distracted by it as well. For example, I should be talking about something then, and it doesn't even matter what. Absolutely unrelated things like pouring tea from one glass to another, I don't know, or combing my hair. And then, when I found this out, I really noticed that a lot of girls film reels while doing their makeup. So basically, they're feeding you all of this because they know how our brain works.
At least they're not picking their nose, so that's good.
Well, that's true too, yeah. There are studies where people with internet addiction show changes in the dopamine system similar to those seen in people with drug addiction. Can social networks really be put on the same level as drug addiction?
We see a lot of those Japanese hikikomori who don't leave their homes for years. The Japanese are so prosperous that their children don't need to work their entire lives. So he sits in his room, there are video games, something else, they bring him food there and take away the chamber pot. He becomes completely unkempt and lives like Robinson Crusoe on an island, absolutely isolated from reality.
There was an episode like that in South Park where Eric Cartman was playing World of Warcraft. And his mom even, I don't know, maybe you can find it, she even brought him a potty so he could relieve himself during the game. And she praised him saying, "Good job, you did so well going to the bathroom." I thought it was real. That's the only reason.
Of course, this is a very serious addiction. We see the first criteria of addiction, loss of situational control. You need to do work or something important, but you just sit there, loss of quantitative control. You planned for 2 minutes but wasted 2 hours. Withdrawal syndrome, you didn't get to play, so you're irritated, angry, trying to finish things quickly, leave, escape into your virtual reality.
These tantrums in children,
When children have tantrums, fights, when they throw things, even wreck apartments. Sometimes I have to comment on stories, even up to the point of children killing their parents, the stories that go around. Yes, of course.
I haven't heard of that. Tell me more.
A mother took something from her son in America and he shot her. Here, someone attacked his mother with a knife. These incidents happen regularly.
I remember when I was a kid, well, it happened, I won't lie, it was Heroes of Might and Magic. There was this game, I played it, and at some point they started taking the keyboard to work. Well, I just can't imagine what must be going on in your head for you to do something like that to your mom over computer games.
Well, just imagine how serious that addiction is. Not every drug addict would raise a hand against a relative, but because of a game, they might. Just recently, the thing I commented on, a 30-year-old guy played all night swearing. His dad came in and asked him to be quiet, and he beat up his dad. His dad went to the kitchen to treat his wounds, and the guy took a knife and followed him. Well, in the knife fight, the dad won. He wasn't put in jail, but his life is already ruined. He was just defending himself. Imagine you're 30 years old, an idiot, you don't do anything, you're a great tank player, and you're ready to kill your own father over a comment. How about that? What level of addiction and involvement is that?
I always thought that addiction to gadgets and all that was, kind of a light addiction. But it turns out, basically, the mechanisms are very similar. And addiction...
Well, it's a fit of rage. Basically, the person fell into a state of rage and was ready to kill his own father. I said it's like Taras Bulba, but for no reason at all.
So, if we draw an analogy with drugs, a person who can't tear themselves away, let's say, from the needle, isn't that much different from a person who can't tear themselves away. Well,
all the same phenomena will occur, loss of all kinds of control and withdrawal when it's impossible to satisfy this need.
That is, there will also be withdrawal.
Both mentally and physically. People actually start shaking.
Something's wrong. I'm actually starting to get upset.
It's just that gadget manufacturers and those who own social networks, they control the system too much and they'll never admit this addiction. Even if we have a million cases with scandals and everything else, they'll still find loopholes to keep it going and developing.
Let's take a person who's watching us right now and at the same time is on their phone. If we take their phone away and this person spends 8 to 10 hours a day on their phone, plays video games, doesn't go to the gym for 2 weeks. If we force him to live in a different reality, We'll get a person who will face the problems he's actually running away from, or nothing will change in his life. It's just that I think maybe I'm wrong. Very often we escape into this digital world because there's something we don't like in the real world, in our lives, and there we're some kind of hero in a video game, or maybe it's because of hard work. In the evening, you come home and scroll through things to disconnect. Are we just avoiding reality this way?
Well, it's a very convenient tool.
Just like drug addicts, they escape, how should I say, from this reality.
Let's just feel sorry for ourselves. If you're not satisfied with reality, you need to figure out how you can influence it. You can't just watch your life like a movie. Well, I'm not satisfied. I'm so poor, so miserable. So I'll just drink or be on my phone, live with someone I don't love, work at a job I hate, curse my boss, and so on. Everything is wrong, so I'm forced to rely on stimulants. Well, it's kind of really sad. We all face problems. Yes, there are things we don't like. That's called feedback. You got negative feedback, you change your behavior or something else, but you solve the problem, you don't run away from it. That's childish behavior.
Editor, I agree with you, I agree, but there's a problem. When I, for example, heard from my parents, kittens, they told me quite harshly, if we find out you're using drugs, we'll throw you out the window. There, in honor of my late father, they didn't stand on ceremony when I saw cigarettes.
You should only promise sanctions you're prepared to enforce?
I really doubt it.
That dad,
When you were little,
you were about 7 years old.
you're still afraid. When, for example, they talked about the TV, I really was afraid. But no one ever told me that reels could cause me serious problems with motivation, testosterone levels, libido, and everything else. And no one is saying it now either. So, we already know about vapes, we know about electronic cigarettes, about hookahs.
That all the countries around us have banned them. Even the president said to ban them. Everyone here is expressing concern, but they still haven't banned them. Great.
They'll ban them soon, I know, they'll ban them soon.
How many more years do we have to wait?
I think within a year.
Could make a bet with you, Paris.
We have a movement that I'm also creating. It's called Healthy Homeland. Katya Leshchinskaya. And all these initiatives, including the episode you took part in, are all little building blocks towards what will eventually lead to a ban, believe me.
China exports vapes globally, even though they've long been banned there. It's cool, right? They don't debate it, they just banned it.
Cigarettes have a warning on them, right? So maybe there should be a little triangle at the bottom in Reels. Make it, like how there's a label for AI-generated content. Let's do it logically, that probably makes sense. If it's harmful, then a small warning like watching Reels can harm your health on every video.
You often stand in a store and someone says, "Give me that pack with the impotence warning." It's not really that scary, Especially for those who are already addicted. But Kaman doesn't know that once you start with cat videos, there's no going back. What do you think?
I still want to do at least something reasonable because, when they told me about TV that I'd go blind, I thought they were lying, that it wasn't true. I was recently changing after a workout in the locker room. We have these sections, about 20 lockers each. And there's this boy standing there, probably about 12 years old. His phone isn't in his hands, it's just lying there like this, and there are reels playing, and he's hunched over like a hawk, swiping with one finger, then another. It's some social network, maybe TikTok, and he's in a towel, still wet, just out from somewhere, scrolling. My friends and I went to the sauna, sat there for 30 minutes.
Nothing changed?
We came back. I swear, he was already dry, still in that same twisted pose, standing there with his finger pointing up.
It's like those fentanyl users who freeze, right? Yeah, like that, either this way or that way.
But it's horrible, just awful. Yeah, did you catch yourself doing the same thing, for sure? Well, it happened that you zone out, you arrive, zone out, and that's it. 30 to 40 minutes go by, and the effect is that time blurs. That also explains it.
Yeah, that's dopamine. It also gives you a sense of time. If it's interesting your body, well, you definitely won't be bored. Your body will keep you excited.
I think everyone has noticed that when you're sitting in class somewhere, or at a lecture or something else that you want to end as soon as possible, time just drags unbelievably.
Yeah, at the dentist, yeah.
At the dentist, you wonder, how much longer?
Before your jaw locks up?
And when you went to play CS on the computer with your friends or somewhere else, suddenly it's already morning. Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but Back when I was younger, we used to go at night, really. We'd buy a bag of chips, some drink, and go at night because it was cheaper at night. So, 2 hours of gaming during the day was enough to go for the whole night. Well, in my first years at university or so, I played Counter-Strike. Have you ever heard about dopamine detox? What's your opinion on it in general? Do you think a lot of what you see online or somewhere else can actually be called a dopamine detox? Or is most of that advice just nonsense?
There are some really cool practices where you also rethink many things. For example, Vipassana, the Indian one, where people don't even use their phones. You're not even allowed to make eye contact, talking is forbidden, and you spend several days in meditative practice. You can practice yoga, and you really go deep. It really lets you rethink many things and allows you to reset. So it's very important that we can cut off this endless flow of information that doesn't let our brain focus on important things. We do a digital detox. On Saturdays, I turn off my phone and I'm just not available. I spend time with my kids, walk in the park, we play, and I find out what they're interested in. That's how it is. Even if you promise me a million, Saturday is still Saturday for me. It's like I'm Jewish, a sacred day, I'm with my kids, and nothing else matters.
You know, this resetting of receptors, I experienced it when I was preparing for competitions.
Well, yeah.
Cutting, bodybuilding is basically a kind of dietary discipline. You can't have dairy there.
Carb loading.
There are no carbs for a long time. It was especially hard for me to cut. And then, when they give you regular buckwheat, or I don't know, God, maybe some more like food up to your neck. I was still preparing using some slightly outdated methods, and you really start to feel that food in the whole city just becomes several times tastier. I remembered McDonald's, not tasty. Yeah, so there's already a generation that doesn't know what it was like. I mean, they haven't eaten there. I remembered McDonald's. There was one on Pushkinskaya. I remember the first time I ate there, I almost got dizzy. That's how much it affected me.
Glutamate.
Yeah, glutamate and sugar.
That's exactly what this is.
But now it doesn't taste as good.
They picked it so cunningly, this hit on your taste buds. It still left an imprint on you. You see McDonald's here.
But it's not as tasty anymore, and I remember that taste.
That used to make you crave it, but now it's not tasty.
I mean, now I eat it, and I realize that it's not as tasty as it used to be. Most likely, I just didn't have the chance to get that flavor hit, that food craving, and now even a little taste feels delicious. Because I've just had enough already. And maybe if I give up everything and start eating plain food, I'll feel the same way about it too. But I immediately have a question for you. You say once a week, but I can't lose weight, or I can't build muscle if I do it once a week. Will this one day of detox even do anything, or will it just be an excuse, like, I can do whatever I want the other 6 days because I'll detox on Saturday?
We have to train and frustration tolerance. Now, of course, with instant dopamine. I'm bored. Why should I deny myself? But when you introduce this into your practice, start taking control of yourself, it's very ambitious and it becomes easier for you. It's just like, those cold baths that increase dopamine. That's also a certain kind of willpower training. Breath holding is much better than cold baths. It raises dopamine. But you're also training your willpower, and there's oxygen saturation in the brain because your CO2 builds up and all your blood vessels dilate at that moment. These are cool techniques. Vipassana, you can choose any practice for yourself, like a digital detox, set a rule, like during this time I don't use my phone.
But let's define what you would actually put in the right box called detox, so to speak. So, would cold baths count as a plus for detox?
Yes, cold exposure is actually really beneficial, and baths are just perfect. When you immerse yourself, you get this wow effect, and it really keeps you going for a while.
I recommended it.
Well, at least once a week, it's really great.
So what about the sauna?
The sauna, especially after a workout, is the best way to recover.
Let's add the workout there too.
The workout always. Strength training or another type.
Or maybe boxing, wrestling.
Well, any kind of physical activity with weights, free weights, machines, anything at all. That's 1,000,000 times better than this little humpbacked horse thing.
That's what it showed. And reading, that also requires perseverance. I mean, I have to sit and read.
Reading requires perseverance. Moreover, if you want to develop your memory, you also need to retell what you've learned, not just skim through it, but actually figure out what new things you've learned, relate them to your own knowledge, and reinforce them. Well, look at that, how the author expressed the idea. That's cool. Yeah, it's not just about consuming, it's like fast food.
Sleep, making yourself go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time.
I have no issues. I'm an early bird and sleep by 10. That's not up for discussion. Sometimes the kids are still yelling and walking on me while I'm already asleep.
Maybe it's my diet.
Not necessarily. Of course, it's all preventive medicine. We are what we eat, and on an intellectual level, we are what we take in information-wise.
You said that if food is immediately and easily accessible, that's also not good. Basically, if you start cooking for yourself, that's also a plus.
That's really cool. This word life, it's about things like going for walks, cooking food, and talking with interesting people. These are all things about long-lasting dopamine, about very positive emotions.
You should probably cut back on computer games.
I just don't know. I'm not susceptible to that. Of course, I have this principle, the less the better, because they don't give you anything.
And drinks, all those black-colored ones.
We drink tea. I do it from time to time.
Well, are they good or bad after all?
Coffee has also been shown to have a positive effect.
And tea, I mean dopamine specifically.
Dopamine levels also increase a little, just like chocolate, which raises it slightly. Well, why not? If you set some goal for yourself and you reward yourself with a piece of chocolate, that's great. It's extra motivation, plus it helps to replenish the energy you've spent.
Wouldn't it be harmful to deprive yourself of all incentives? Life is already hard enough as it is.
All of them, what? Are they going to put us in solitary or something? There are a million incentives around. You're just stuck with this pointless stuff that leads nowhere.
I can tell you, for example, I started taking a taxi to work and I feel like something's missing. I mean, before I had this 5-minute drive to and from work in my favorite car. It really was a special ritual for me. I would get in, start it up, hear the roar of the engine, drive a little, just a bit, but I enjoyed it because I liked the feeling that it was mine, that I earned it, bought it honestly. And then, for certain reasons, so as not to demotivate employees, so as not to associate my image with values I don't truly hold, I gave it up. And now, since I work in public service, I don't have my own private car, I come by taxi. And for me, I realized that I had an addiction, I started to suffer from it, and for many months it was hard for me, that I didn't have the opportunity to just get in the car and drive somewhere.
Well, I could have bought some kind of rare Zaporozhets, and even if it was embarrassing to drive a Zaporozhets.
So, now the other way around.
If only they would increase my salary.
The other way around. When I wanted something simpler, they said, if you buy something cheap, people will say you're pretending to be poor, which means you stole.
Oh Lord, yes.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Well, what does that say? That you can't please everyone? Maybe you should just not care about them and live the way you like. What do you think?
I haven't figured it out yet.
I walk to work through Kolomenskoye, and if I'm lucky, I feed the squirrels there. I always have nuts in my pocket. I'm full of positive emotions.
Look, I get up in the morning and I have half an hour to talk with my son, to spend at least some time with him. While I'm getting dressed, I don't have breakfast. I try to make sure he sees me, to interact with him somehow. I leave for work and come back around 5 or 6. I had to move my workouts to 8 in the evening, even though working out in the evening...
In the evening is a complete mess. I always used to work out in the morning.
I can't do it in the morning because it's too early and I have work. If I work out after work, my son is already asleep when I get home.
Well, you're not a manager at all. You can't adjust your workday.
No, I'm a civil servant. Every day, literally every day, I spend 2 hours with my son, 2.5. It's not like I sit with him for 2 hours straight, but at least so he sees me every day. I get really upset if I'm late somewhere, and for example, he doesn't see me today, and only after that do I go to my workout, and I understand perfectly well that it's not good to train before bed. Because of this, I recover worse.
I have less energy.
It's much harder to train.
And there are more people in the gym. There are only downsides. There's no point in going to the gym in the evening. Alexander,
Change your routine.
what is your life about, our dear employee?
There you are, serving the people. And for me, sports are basically my only outlet, besides my family. In order to pull myself together, I feel better when I wrestle, when I go to the gym, I really need it.
That's the right kind of dopamine, the lasting kind. When you give your all in training, you increase your strength, you get that good feeling in your muscles, you get that joy of movement. Then you go to the sauna, relax, and that warmth seeps into you. Nothing compares to that. I agree.
You have a fitness tracker on your wrist. If you watch many of my episodes and interviews, for about a year and a half to 2 years, I wore a gadget. I stopped wearing it for two reasons, and I started to get annoyed by the feeling of being controlled.
If it says you've sat too long, get up and move.
It tells me that I'm recovered, but I feel like a piece of, crap.
I don't go by that.
So he started dictating the terms of my life to me. I think you're supposed to guide me, help me, but in the end, he became some kind of boss, setting demands. And at that moment, I also realized that I'd actually slipped into over control. And there, reading for 40 minutes a day that's on schedule. I remembered my childhood when I had a schedule hanging up that I lived by, and I always remember that. There was an hour of fun my dad wrote for me, and that's when I took it down, I think.
Whatever you want.
You can do anything you want. That was my fun hour.
You see, for you, this comes from your core beliefs that there has to be a plan, multitasking, everything has to be done, and only then do you deserve an hour of fun.
Well, it just turns out, frustration. Here you do whatever you want, get stuck on your phone. And extremes. I just see extremes. It's extremely rare for someone to manage to balance both extremes, and I rarely see people who succeed at it.
I agree with that. There's the Pareto principle that says 20% of the effort gives 80% of the result.
But I'll tell you the continuation of this principle, which nobody talks about or knows. To understand what those 20% are, you need to do 100% of the work. And it turns out, those 20% retrospectively, after you've done it, you look back and say, well, yes, these 8 business projects of mine failed. I should have been investing in that 20% instead. But to understand where those 20% are, you have to do everything. And very few people manage to know in advance.
No, but when you make it a habit to analyze, to understand, to do a SWOT analysis each time, where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are, over time, this turns into unconscious competence and you no longer waste energy on it in surgery.
You should try out different directions. Figure out where you have a natural talent, and then put your efforts there. It's the same in business. I've owned various businesses before and learned where my natural talent and competence are.
You're awesome for trying different options and picking what worked, while most people just fantasize.
Well, maybe, but everyone will have to walk on broken glass to figure out where their 20% is.
That's what's cool about it. You've gone through the key part, you have a result, and you also have some options you've tried that just weren't for you.
Porn is our next topic, sex libido. A lot of my followers ask me to ask questions, so I'm asking you, including the ones they specifically wanted me to ask you. I watch porn regularly, and I've started to notice that my interest in real sex has decreased. Vasily, as a psychiatrist, do you encounter this in your practice? Is this a widespread issue or just an isolated case?
This is quite a widespread issue because this kind of substitute for sex is very convenient. Moreover, if you remember the famous Coolidge effect with a constant partner, your receptors become quite dulled. We're coming back to the fact that the brain loves novelty, and porn provides visuals, angles, and images that are almost impossible to experience in real life. Well, probably only at the beginning do you get such a rush of excitement and everything else.
It's the same with products. My friend who owns a beverage factory says you always need new flavors. Why does everything get boring? People get bored with absolutely everything.
That's why the practice of asceticism, if your sex life has become too routine, too mundane, well, just take a short break. Why, did fasts exist, for example? It's precisely a restriction on food and sexual life that allowed people to maintain long-lasting interest. And now there's so much of everything, different options, if you want cyber sex, if you want something else, porn for every taste. The receptors are already so overloaded, and for men, visual stimulation is one of the main ones. If you've seen all these pictures and angles, it's very hard for you to get aroused enough by your usual partner.
Now there's something new. Yesterday I was sitting with the CEO, he's watching this video, and he says, listen, I found this neural network, look what it does. And I swear, you upload a person's photo and you become, basically your photo turns into a porn video.
And now it's a huge turnoff, meaning he watches from the side how he would be having sex.
Yeah, but he uploaded a photo of some female coworker there, like me. What's the point of this next wave now? I mean, porn movies themselves are harmful. You know what? Many guys, like Alya Rilsa, start by watching a video, then another, until they're not just watching, but actively searching for porn, sometimes even just searching without watching. And now, yeah, it's all about dopamine. And it gets even worse. Now it's also considered art, something extra, so now it's a new stage. It's porn, and besides the fact that it's porn, it's the kind of porn that just physically can't exist in real life. In this case, yes, there's a porn actress. If it's live, then the imagination is no longer limited, and it gets even worse. This is a new trend in porn, and by the way, it turns out it's very popular. I didn't know, I found out yesterday.
In short, artificial intelligence will adapt to everything. Yes.
Questions from subscribers next. I constantly stimulate my sex drive by watching pornography and masturbating, but in real life, my desire fades away. Why doesn't this stimulation work?
Well, I hope I've already explained because it gives what a regular stimulus already does. That's like if you eat something sweet and then after something sweet you eat bread and it will taste completely bland and flavorless to you. That's why the point isn't stimulation, it's actually exhaustion. You get a dopamine release, and as a result, some of your receptors sink into the membrane, and the enzymes that break down this dopamine become more active. And in the end, this baseline level or this slight rise from routine sex doesn't work at all, it isn't perceived. Welcome to sexual performance anxiety. Because with self-stimulation everything was fine, but here with insufficient stimulation the erection will be the same.
I'll ask another question that's listed here. So it turns out that fast food for us is the same kind of super stimulus as porn, after which regular food seems bland, tasteless, and you always want fast food. And it works the same way with sex, that it stops feeling exciting enough.
Of course, it becomes very banal, standard, and you can't reach the necessary peak of arousal because for a man, arousal increases gradually up to orgasm. But how do you maintain it if you've trained your brain to this highly elaborate visual content?
Yeah, and you don't need to invite anyone to a restaurant, call, or text.
But it's so great when someone loves you. The courting, the foreplay, all of that. How can you just throw away that part when you're lying together after sex, hugging, bathing in that oxytocin? How can that compare to this nasty total surrogate, this madness, when for 23 hours straight, until you get bloody blisters, until your frenulum tears, you're like a zombie, hunched over in the bathroom, and your family is already banging on the door, telling you to come back? How does a person manage to turn everything into some kind of monstrous problem, so that you have to go to a sexologist, to a psychiatrist, lose your reputation, lose your health? It's amazing, simply phenomenal.
Vasily, do you often see men whose libido hasn't just suffered because of this, but whose relationships have actually fallen apart?
Well, a woman perceives this. The loss of interest is very painful, of course. Her first thought is that someone else must be the lucky one. But even the fact that a person finds pornography more interesting than their partner isn't any easier. As they say, my wife is a sexologist, and right now this is one of the most common questions. He can get an erection for pornography, but not for me. It's very upsetting, and people have to work hard to save something.
Are these changes reversible if a person just stops watching? Will their brain recover, or is there still a point of no return?
No. As long as a person is alive, it's always possible to recover from problems to some extent. No, but you honestly make the decision that pornography is destroying your life. You should go to psychotherapy. There are medications that can suppress this subcortical arousal when you engage in compulsive actions. There are different options.
How long does recovery take? For instance, if someone has a strong pornography addiction and is really...
It really depends on motivation. If he's formally ready, then recovery can easily happen within a few months.
And it will be just like it was before.
Well, to some extent, it's hard to say. Maybe it will even be better.
But it could also fall apart.
As always, it's a very quick and easy way to get satisfaction. Like you said, no restaurants, nothing. And in case of divorce, she won't take half your property, as some fans like to say.
I know people who've quit smoking 5 times. announcing it each time. It's probably the same situation here, stress or some problem.
But you can deal with your problems by having normal sex anyway. Why not? You can change things up, I don't know, rent a room, create an unusual atmosphere, try a new practice. Why go to the movies right away?
The question is whether watching sometimes is normal, and where is the line where problems start?
Again, it's about losing track of quantity, the situation, and when this reality becomes more interesting than real life.
That's what they're asking. Well,
You say it too. Sometimes I look and think, how many? Can I do the same with you?
24/7, that's probably a problem. About every 2 or 3 weeks, he does something there.
Well, every 2 or 3 weeks he checks out some new thing or watches something new if he's a fan of some porn star. Yeah, that's fine.
How do you feel about the fact that many porn industry stars become bloggers? They have a huge number of fans, and often, how should I put it, they shoot porn videos with their husbands, whose faces are hidden, like a family business. Well, something like that, yeah.
This industry unfortunately exists and it's huge money. Now it's a consumer society, and if a person has no moral restraints, money is money to them. He is ready to make money on this kind of content to talk to his audience. Pornography is one of the most widespread kinds of content on the internet.
It's amusing when people leave this profession and then go online to tell others how to live.
Yes, some become psychologists or someone else. It's really funny. I agree with you on that.
Why do men so rarely talk about their problems with pornography?
Well, it's actually pretty shameful. Admitting that you're engaging in such a substitute for sex isn't really accepted. Usually, men compete over the number of women, youth, having a mistress or something else, but rarely does anyone compete over hours spent on pornography. Although I wouldn't be surprised if there are some who do.
Frank, we need to come up with something. General, tell me. And here's a typical picture of a man with a porn addiction, what he looks like. Is he some IT guy with an unsuccessful personal life? Maybe things aren't going well at work, or maybe he's a super successful artist, for example.
A super successful artist. Still, that's less common, and usually, really, it's someone from the middle class, middle aged, and anxious person, someone who doesn't know how to handle stress. So he found this path there. The empty nest syndrome, when the kids have grown up, the sex life is minimal, or on the contrary, teenagers at peak testosterone. You can't take them to a restaurant yet, and you don't always find a partner. People have serious dissatisfaction with their own appearance, a lot of insecurities, so people are very different. Sometimes you wouldn't even guess that this is the real problem.
I have a friend who's an endocrinologist, and he often says that you prescribe treatment to people who have endocrine problems to begin with, and sometimes it's the other way around. I've seen cases where a person came to an endocrinologist with depression and left after getting a testosterone shot in the butt. And as a result, after about a month, he has a sort of renaissance, he feels happier, everything seems brighter, but then things start to go completely downhill. What does that tell us? Well, at the very least, it means that a psychologist or psychiatrist should at least have a basic understanding of hormones, be able to differentiate, and realize that there could be problems here. Similarly, endocrinologists or andrologists should recognize when a patient may have psychological issues and refer them to a psychiatrist, just as psychiatrists should refer patients to an endocrinologist if needed. What would you do? Otherwise, it's just a tug of war. Because right now, I see that some say everything can be treated with hormones, while others say otherwise. I believe there's a triangle model of the body, or rather a pyramid. The head is our psyche, biochemistry, and body, and it's all connected. And when you try to solve a problem only through hormones, the amount of effort will be much higher, the effect will be lower, and it will be hard to maintain it. Is it the same as when you try to solve it only through your mind or only through your routine? And I think a holistic approach is very important. Give an example. A man comes to you and says, I have no energy, I don't want my wife, I have no complaints, I don't like anything, nothing motivates me. So how do you know that this is your patient and not, for example, an endocrinologist's?
Well, a decrease in libido can really happen both with depression and with hypogonadism. When we talk about depression, the basis is usually very negative thoughts about oneself, about the future, and a generally low mood. Often, if it's not some kind of endogenous depression, but rather reactive depression, we know of some traumatic event that triggered it. Well, if it fits into my picture, if I can't explain some symptom, of course I start thinking about endocrinology and anything else. It's clear that there are things like nighttime awakenings, loss of morning erections, and other things. There are pathognomonic symptoms. He started losing muscle mass, or on the contrary, he started overeating and his belly grew. There are things you might think about, like getting your testosterone checked, those proteins that bind testosterone, everything that's necessary. But I don't order this test myself. I just recommend seeing an endocrinologist as well at the same time.
Are there any key signs that a person has depression and not hormonal problems?
Depression, after all, we have different types: atypical, masked, agitated. Of course, when you have experience, you can see it in your patients, but there are also troublemakers who read too much and come in. So instead of saying loss of pleasure from usual things, he says anhedonia. I understand that he's already read up, he's prepared, he decided to make my life easier. And in our medical records, we don't even write anhedonia. We write exactly the patient's complaints about anhedonia in their own words. It looks pretty funny. That's why we don't have anything that's 100% reliable. Obviously, we have questionnaires. Unfortunately, psychiatry is a science where the diagnosis is based on observation and clinical interviews. The patient has to tell you about those same voices or demonstrate through their behavior that they're listening to something or seeing something. You can't just put them in an MRI scanner or take their blood and get a 100% definitive sign of anything. That's why the doctor's skill, the clinical interview, and the patient's openness are important. It's also preferable to talk with the relatives. When did he change? What exactly changed, and why did they suddenly decide to come? There must be some serious trouble because our depressive patients don't give in right away. Drink some vodka, go to the bathhouse, find some sex workers, do some other crazy stuff, then go see a psychic, then drink some holy water and do something else. A psychiatrist will be the very last on that list. Most likely you probably have the same problem.
You know, right, that for several generations now, men's levels of sex hormones have been decreasing.
Unfortunately, yes, that's worldwide statistics for men. Compared to our grandfathers,
Yes.
grandfathers in our time,
Today's 30-year-olds have testosterone levels like our grandfathers did at 70. The question is, what about endocrine health? Is it decreasing? And what about psychological health? If we also look at these grandfathers, how motivated they were, how much energy they had, their desire to achieve something, they probably had that. We already discussed that the modern world takes away our hard-earned dopamine and gives us easy dopamine. That's the psychological health of our grandfathers.
Just to digress a little, I was reading, well, now there are these websites about heroic deeds. I was reading about my grandfather's medals. He fought at the Battle of Kursk near the Forward to Labor Collective Farm, breaking through German defenses and launching a counterattack. He was the first to rush into the trench there, and he was wounded. I understand that he was drafted at 18. He was just over 20 there, and he went into a frontal assault. He was the first to break in. And what else? I always remember being 21, and I realized that probably that's pretty intense. I was nowhere near that. These are completely different people with totally different values, people who aren't pampered or spoiled. He actually comes from a village where you had to get your own food, work really hard, while we had everything handed to us. That's why we have a low frustration tolerance. We can't endure much, we're pretty timid and lazy, and we have high demands for comfort and for life in general. So what is testosterone? Testosterone, it's about struggle, conquest, muscles, and activity. But if you're living on fast food, reels, and all that stuff, where would you get it from?
Too much comfort takes away our ability to be real men. So,
Well, naturally, we turn into some kind of amoebas. If people don't go to the gym and just lie around, usually with a beer so their belly doesn't shrink and whatever else, but they still never make it to the gym, it's very sad, and I see it in very young people when you can tell he's still a school kid, but he already has a real belly. For us, walking around with a belly like that was unthinkable. You wouldn't have passed PE, and you would have definitely been a target for bullying, not necessarily super aggressive, but they would have definitely gotten on your nerves.
I think that unfortunately, we often see the consequences of lifestyle choices. People come to us, to andrologists and endocrinologists, with the consequences of their lifestyle. And I'm sure that all these dopamine swings that we constantly put ourselves through are part of it too. They lead to decreased immunity, demotivation, reduced libido, and lower testosterone, but everyone comes looking for a simple solution. I'd like to know, is it the same in your profession? People come to us, they've read a lot, watched a lot, and say, yeah, I've already seen everything, all the videos. This makes me uneasy.
The doctor is just supposed to sign off on their decision, yes?
Just prescribe me testosterone. I say, listen, you don't need testosterone, you need to fix your sleep. I say, show me your phone, how many steps do you have there?
Here's the basics. Tell me, sports, sex, sleep? 3 S's. Well, at least bring this back into your life, and you'll get feedback from physical activity, your testosterone will kick in, your sex life will improve, and you'll get enough sleep. More. Add some zinc, fatty acids, and something else that's needed for synthesis. If he's young, has no major issues, and still has testicles, yeah, I just can't believe that it's impossible to restore this naturally. All right, male menopause at 70. If it's supposed to happen, then you can play around with it. But why do it earlier without any indications? It's just harmful to your own health.
I've often met people with low testosterone who manage to restore it primarily by cutting down on social media, improving their sleep, and so on.
That's the first recommendation. If you're not using it, why would your testosterone be high? If you're not achieving anything, not courting women, why would you have it? Your body will only produce it for certain purposes. That's just how our body works. If you just inject it and lie on the couch, nothing will happen. Your muscles won't grow and women won't line up for you. It doesn't work that way.
Do you have any interesting stories about a patient that unfortunately didn't end well because he didn't listen to you?
Very often with addictions, when people come in, they start arguing, saying, yeah, it's easy for me, everything's fine, I'll come back in a year. Then their relatives call and say, that's it, overdose, he died. And what can I say to them? There's no such thing as if only now. All of us, it's like, I want to be as smart as my wife. Then it happens quite regularly, and the same goes for alcoholics. But the person already has cirrhosis. And honestly, I ask, aren't you worried you'll need a liver transplant?
With the stomach?
Already with such a stomach, with veins, with spider veins, with this erythema, straight out of a textbook. And every time he comes in after a 2-week drinking binge, and every time his relatives bring him in demanding that we restore him in 3 days, I say yes, I don't even want to take him. His esophageal veins could burst any moment on the IV, and tomorrow you'll drag me to the prosecutor's office. Because in your understanding, he's immortal. But the body, unfortunately, is really made with a huge safety margin. But there is a point of no return. Whether it's dementia when a person is slipping into senility or cirrhosis when someone says, I only drink a little, if it's still the first stage, there are some chances, but when things are really bad, it's a matter of months. And people even here think they have some kind of special arrangement with life and that they're immortal.
You know, I have another question. I often see fans who, after just the first attempt to try something, become hooked. And there are people who tried something once in the past and were able to resist. Is there really a genetic contribution to how tolerant a person is to drugs? There are people who can't even get close to them, because even a small amount of a drug can make someone instantly addicted. They will keep coming back and they won't be able to quit. That's why you shouldn't tempt fate and try it, because you could easily end up being someone who just can't quit. And even something like that could turn out to be a gateway to something more serious. In the end,
unfortunately, it happens very often. But even if he stops, there's still an increase in tolerance. All the same problems as with smoking, plus this dulling of the mind. Seriously, those American comedies aimed at stoners are insanely dumb. If you watch them without smoking, you won't find them funny. There's a dumbing down happening. And this is a very, very, very important point, an important point. The last patient, he's 60 years old, was referred by a pulmonologist because he smoked so much that he developed bronchiectasis with respiratory failure. He was simply ordered to do so, to quit smoking. Come on, come in.
Come on, get in the shot with us.
Shot. You know, when a child is raised with a lot of communication, they're not ready to spend some time without their dad. It's her time. Unfortunately, about 80% try. As for addiction, about 10 to 30% are at risk. Most don't get addicted, that's a fact, but it's always a lottery. We don't know if it will stick or not, what the brain's biochemistry is like. Sometimes it just hits that way, or a person still gets such a degree of euphoria that they keep comparing everything to it. It seems to him that his life is empty and uninteresting.
Amphetamine raises dopamine tenfold.
I think maybe even 100 times.
2.5 times. Alcohol increases it much less, but alcoholism is still the most common thing there is. Tell me, why isn't the strength of a dopamine hit equal to the risk of addiction?
Humanity decides what's acceptable, what's cool. Having alcohol on the table is sometimes a sign of status, of fun, but a line of something is only considered cool in certain circles. That's why. What can you say? It's not that accessible to most people. They've been brainwashed about alcohol since childhood. So, a holiday looks like this. Dad drinks, dad is nice, and in their view that's normal. They can't see it any other way. Cats are still cats. Most people understand that this is a one-way road.
Often all social networks, cats and all that, that's bad. People turn to it not for pleasure, but rather as a form of escapism, meaning the desire to run away from reality.
This is one of the reasons to use, especially alcohol. Often we can't even tell whether depression started first and then alcohol joined in, or if alcohol caused the depression. It's the same with substances. It's the effect of attachment, that you can get a positive emotion at any moment without any effort, without having to wait for that delayed dopamine hit. That's why people really like quick ways.
So, what's more dangerous for the reward system? When we give it small hits every day, like with those reels? Or when, for example, I have friends who believe in a safe dose of alcohol and have a glass of whiskey every evening, or drink heavily once a week, or, once a week. But then, I don't know, like playing computer games for a whole day. Which one wears it down more?
It's just a different pattern of addiction, and both
Are bad.
like the Southern European style, where they have wine every evening, and the Northern European style, where it's on weekends, strong drinks to the limit.
But both of those are alcoholism.
And that's alcoholism too. Alcohol, an intoxicant, a fool maker, a brain destroying, completely unnecessary substance.
And what addictions probably are not considered dangerous today, but in fact, you would like to draw attention to them so that people think about them and talk about them more often.
Everything that we define as an addiction, something that consumes a person, becomes number one. Just recently we were discussing these stories about mountain climbers. When this Nagovitsina buried her husband on a peak and exactly a few years later climbed a neighboring mountain, she broke her leg there, and a Frenchman, I think, or an Italian, went to rescue her, and he also froze to death because of her. Trying to save her, a helicopter flew after her and crashed. People survived by a miracle. So one person is so addicted to adrenaline that it created such a dangerous situation, caused the death of another climber, and almost put a lot of people at risk. How is it that you've already lost your husband in the mountains? And still, how many signs do you need to realize you can't just, go for a mountain walk? Do you really have to climb a sheer cliff and risk never coming back? The children, the whole country was worried about her like that. They sent a helicopter. Why create all this? That's actually selfish.
We've talked a lot about addictions today. Very often, A person probably forms the idea that it's probably someone unsuccessful, someone who doesn't achieve anything. I know a lot of guys who are constantly on energy drinks, always on caffeine, always glued to their phones, always on them, always needing that adrenaline. So they're basically dopamine addicts, but at the same time, they're quite successful in life. But, as I've realized, it's likely just a matter of time before they burn out and crash.
Well, usually that's how it ends. Successful, 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 and then it all comes crashing down. Then something doesn't work out and you're completely empty inside. You've always been running on energy, on achievements, and then, well, welcome to burnout.
So, people like that, achievers, they have a hard time going through tests of endurance.
They always have what I call external validation. They have an inner belief that they can only be loved for some kind of achievements. As long as he's successful, he's on top, but there's no right to make a mistake. It's hard to live like that.
Well, I take mistakes and failures hard. It's really tough for me. I won't lie. It's difficult for me. I'm a perfectionist.
I have to say, it's not a mistake, it's testing out an option, preparing for something greater. It's feedback from life. But I'm still cool because I tried, I wasn't afraid. Even if we just rephrase it, it'll be easier for you. A mistake, I should have foreseen it. Just like you said about the Pareto principle, that's exactly it. You foresaw there was an opportunity, you worked through it, but it didn't work out. That's feedback, not a mistake. It's experience after all. It's mastery. Call it whatever you want. Why call it a mistake? The real mistake is doing nothing, not changing, just whining and drinking.
Can we say that the entire environment we live in today is probably the largest social experiment in human history? The fact is, our entire society today is built on a system of rewards.
Laughter. Here's my reward system. I think people have always built society on a system of carrot and stick. It's just that now it's been turned into a cult of consumerism. You always have to show off some kind of bright, successful life, some achievements, and everything else. You're always in the spotlight. And many have signed up for this competition, but they've already lost the point. Or what is their life about in this race?
The main problem of modern people is still an overabundance of stimuli.
Of course, 100% because of the endless flow of information. There's even a comparison that a medieval peasant received as much information in their entire life as we do in a single day. At most, he could go to church on weekends, listen to a sermon, look at the frescoes, and maybe something else. Otherwise, everything was pretty routine for him, in line with the seasonal farm work. Monkeys have even less information, and we, against the backdrop of this storm of endless information flow, we already lose meaningful stimuli in the pursuit of trying to see everything, to foresee everything. And in fact, attention becomes scattered, stress increases, and here comes anxiety because you no longer understand where to turn. And if you're an anxious person, then Big Brother will throw bad news at you as soon as you open your phone. Just try.
Don't you think that it's all a bit too much these days? In general? Basically, I'm not talking about the podcast, but in general. We're talking about dopamine, we're talking about testosterone. Yeah, I don't really like talking about testosterone, but I have very little. We're talking about root causes, about the meaning that should fill life and give it flavor. About family, about relationships, about true goals that give meaning to our lives. About the legacy that, in fact, every man deep down wants to leave behind. But because he is unable or can't or loses in the competition, yes, he starts to deceive himself or convince himself that it won't work out. And often these painkillers turn out to be things like alcohol or some kind of vapes. There are also sports teams, including, yes, dependent addicts,
who push themselves to the limit. And all these super hyper marathons that last for 20 days.
Runners, I have a question about that.
Yes, runners, this state we've been describing when they turn running into a kind of cult. Everyone has 20 boxes of sneakers, a ton of medals. They've run everywhere, in every possible place. But these are extremes, life. Once you start going to extremes, something useful becomes harmful, your joints and heart still wear out. Well, we're not cheetahs or whatever animal is supposed to run all the time. There should be a reasonable balance.
I have a friend, Vlad. He runs. He's always training. He wants to run a marathon in under 3 hours, even though he weighs quite a lot. And if he misses a workout, he really worries about it, he really needs it, and he has different kinds of training sessions. There are interval runs, there are sprints, and you can see it on him. Sometimes he comes out looking pale and green, barely breathing, his legs hurt, he limps after running, but he still goes and does it. Tell me, what do you think? Why does a person go through this in life? Because when I asked him why he does it, he said it's hard for him. When he doesn't have a specific goal, like a bodybuilding competition, or say, finishing a half Ironman, or now, does he really need running? I said, I really want you to run there in April at the end and finish it for yourself. But I think something new will come up again after that.
What is he running from? Why isn't this story about family or career or something else? He's putting in extra effort, risking his health just for running.
And what is usually behind this?
Well, it's also a kind of escapism, an escape from reality, from the life he's not satisfied with. I don't know. You need to talk to him. Maybe he's actually in some kind of depressive state and he's just trying to run away from it.
I think I stopped criticizing him, stopped scolding him. I even started running with him for a while, but then I got injured and stopped.
I realize that. But it's madness, especially if the person isn't built like a runner and so on. He'll probably ruin his joints and eventually calm down. And the way he'll stop will also be because of problems, obviously.
The most destructive legal addiction of our time, in your opinion?
Right now, I'd say it's gadgets, in my opinion.
So it's gadgets after all.
I think yes, because it's especially true for teenagers, especially for children, because they're very specific. This digital brain is being formed, which needs a lot of stimuli, which can't focus on anything. It will be very hard for people to achieve their goals.
I have a final question. Usually a guy is watching us right now and recognizes himself in one of the questions. What would you advise him, first of all, as a person, and probably secondly, as a psychiatrist and addiction specialist? What is the first step he should take to change himself if he truly realizes that it's harmful, that these habits aren't making him a better version of himself?
First, you must truly realize there's a problem. This awareness is crucial, since without it, nothing changes. Denial of the problem is a basic symptom of most addictions, sometimes even the core one. It goes through all the stages. No matter what happens, awareness must be followed by a decision. I want to change my life. I can't live like this anymore. I'm ready. After deciding, corresponding actions must follow. Start with a psychotherapist, go see an addiction specialist, figure out what problems you're covering up with your addiction, with your behavior, what's not going well in your life. Because, well, we're subjective, everything seems fine. So why did you retreat to the internet or run around like crazy, destroying your body? That means for some reason, reality doesn't suit you. You're lacking achievements, and once you've made that decision, you need to start changing your life. If you didn't like one specialist, go to another, join some group of like-minded people, do something else. Don't just sit there, don't whine, and don't hope that it will go away on its own.
I enjoyed our conversation today.
We talked and laughed, and that's it. We even touched on the haters. I think everyone enjoyed it.
For us, this wasn't an interview, it was a dialogue.
They usually say everyone expressed their own point of view.
Gustia, you're interrupting.
Yes. I believe that everyone has the right to their own opinion. You have a very interesting perspective. I also enjoy watching you, and you do a lot of good for people and keep doing it. And video materials, so I always enjoy it. Invite me anytime, we'll talk. Thank you.
For coming.